Hi, good morning, everyone. Hey, Matt.
Hello.
I am so excited to sit and chat with you over coffee for our coffee and conversations.
Cheers.
Cheers. So, I'm Jen Marshall, co founder and executive director of This Is My Brave, and Matt is joining us today to talk about hope for the day. And so, Matt, give us your brief intro, where you're coming in from, and then we'll go into some conversation.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Matt Fuchs. I am the interim executive director for Hope for the Day. I also serve as a senior director of finance, and that was my role before taking on the interim executive director role. I work virtually. I'm from Pittsburgh, but I work out of Charlotte now and visit Chicago as much as I possibly can.
Awesome, because the headquarters is Chicago. So
Correct. Yeah.
awesome. Well, let's start. I'm curious to know, all of us in this field of mental health have our own personal story of our connection to the cause. Would you mind taking us there and telling us about your connection to it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my family, I didn't realize this when I was younger, but my family does have a mental health history, dealing with different things such as depression, anxiety, agoraphobia, and it just wasn't talked about much growing up. So I didn't know how to handle what would come in the future. From probably when I was 22 to 23 and a half, like there was a year and a half period when I was extremely depressed and anxious and having panic attacks every day. And I didn't know what it was for the longest time. My brother finally connected with me and said, "You're having panic attacks." But for a year, I didn't know if I was alive or dead. And I didn't have any suicidal ideation, but I definitely wouldn't have minded not waking up and feeling that terror every day. So from that moment on, I said, if I have friends at least that are experiencing this, even enemies, it was the worst experience of my life, that I don't want them to feel that way. And my background is in accounting and finance. So I spent better half of a decade in public accounting. So, when I was able to find an outlet to be able to use my accounting and finance to serve this mission, it was a great boost to my overall value of what I was doing in life in general. But yeah, that's how I got here. I think that being in that mindset it's not natural. I want to be careful not to say it is natural. It will happen to some people, but it's not. I don't think it's what's intended for people. I think people have a lot of value intrinsically, and oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, they're good people in general. So I think that everyone just needs that place to reach out to. And luckily, I had my brother. And once my brother, it was like the floodgates open. When he told me something was happening to me, I said,
Mm.
"Oh, this is something that's identified already." And just having that outlet, opened my eyes that some people might not have it, because I was suffering in my head for weeks.
So he helped you reach out and get actual care, then
Yeah,
treatment?
I mean, what happened really was that I was in my parents' basement at that time. I was playing music. I toured in a band, and I remember I pumped gas at a gas station and went home and just was having panic attacks. I was having them daily, and I didn't know what they were. I thought I was going crazy, but I didn't want to say anything about it. And I took some NyQuil because I wanted to just relax or go to sleep. And I told my brother what was happening. He's like, "Oh, you're having a panic attack." And I said, "What the hell is a panic attack? Like, I've
Mm.
never heard this. Maybe I should have heard it by 22, but I didn't. I'm 38 now, so maybe it's a little more open in the environment that we live in now. But yeah, he opened me up to that, and he had panic attacks and had introduced me to a doctor that he went to, and I went to the doctor
Mm.
and started finding the right counselor. And I eventually found the right counselor that explained to me what really got me over my first hump was the biophysical piece of it, because I don't deal well
Mhm.
in the abstract. So when he explained to me physically what was happening in my brain, that helped me understand that, okay, this is a malfunction of some sort
Mhm.
chemically that I can address, and it will go away because it's gone away for other people. So
Yeah, Matt, went through something similar when I was first diagnosed, but mine was bipolar disorder. But I also at the time had pretty severe anxiety symptoms and panic attacks as well. And just being able to know that it's not going to feel like this forever. It will pass. And just to try to breathe through it and, and use your coping mechanisms really helped me. But it is, like you said, something you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. I feel exactly the same. Like it's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was able to help a few of my friends, and that felt good around that time because they did confide in me because I was open about what I dealt with and not patting myself on the back. I just felt like I can't be the only one that's dealing with this and suffering. Especially some of my friends, they came from the same kind of background. My family's blue collar. Not that they're very open. I love my parents. They're very loving. But we come from, you're a teenager to an early adult that you don't want to talk about your weaknesses. You're supposed to be like getting on your feet. So, and you've made a good point about those coping mechanisms. I don't know what it felt like for you, but when I first found how I could get over the first wave, that was such an inspiration and life-changing for me to say, okay, I feel normal for once in weeks. And of course, it transitioned quickly back into not feeling normal, but knowing that was huge. And it takes a lot to learn that.
I feel like we need to learn how to navigate the waves of our mental health, right? Like it's something that's constant, like the ocean, and we're gonna have these periods of unrest, and just learning to roll with it and reach out and use those skills that you learn and you have in your toolbox is how we cope. So
yeah.
Well, so then how did you find hope for the day? Like, was it like this opening that it was like, oh my gosh, this is how I can use my skills and do it for a cause?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I played music growing up, and at the time, Christmas Backos, who is our senior director of human resources now, she served on the board of Hope for the Day. So I played music. Hope for the Day was on Warped Tour. I saw that she was working with Hope for the Day. And we had known each other since we were 16, 17, 18. And she went to Boston and I traveled around a bit. And she came back to Pittsburgh, went to Chicago. So we kept in touch on and off. But then when I saw her working for Hope for the Day, I said, is there any way I can be involved? And I thought that they probably had the best accountant and finance people in the world. So I was like, there's no chance that I'm going to be able to serve here. But luckily, they took me in, and that's exactly it. That was to be able to use, for me at least, in the public accounting world and just finance in general, there's not often a reward for helping others feel better or accomplish things or any kind of anything like that makes you feel like you're living your life and serving the general public or people in general. So finding Hope for the Day, it was a dream come true for me. Literally, this is every day I thank, well, probably once a quarter, I thank Christmas for bringing me here because it's just so enjoyable and so different than punching numbers in a spreadsheet to see a bottom line of a profit and loss statement for something that not really many people care about.
Yeah, I hear you. I was in the recruiting world before starting This Is My Brave, and it was rewarding to a point where you're helping people find their next job, and that felt really good. But there was a lot of paper pushing and that kind of thing, and to find something that you feel so passionate about and being able to help others share their story has been really rewarding for me too. So
yeah, in the recruiting world, I know a little bit enough about it to be dangerous, but it's a lot of politics too, right? A lot of playing the game of how much can you tell someone, what are you looking for, saying the right corporate speak. Yeah, so I'm sure that's a relief not to have to do that.
It definitely got intense, and I think part of it a little contributed my break where my illness emerged. I was just working myself way too hard. I had no concept of work-life balance. I had no concept of self-care. I mean, that was back in 2004, 2005, when I don't think any of us were really talking about it the way we talk about it today. So, it happened for a reason. I believe that old cliche, and now brought me to a mission, my life's work, I think. So, so Matt, let's talk about the various training programs that Hope for the Day does, because we took the things we do not say.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And I would recommend it to everyone out there. And you guys do it monthly, is that right?
Yeah. Well, there's different, well, the mainstay, evergreen, whatever you want to call it, education series is Things We Don't Say. And it is, I don't want to play it down because it is an introductory course to mental health crisis, and how to identify those things in your community and yourself and your friends and family. But our whole approach is peer-to-peer, which is not proprietary. There are others that do peer-to-peer. Obviously, you know this. But, I think that's the way what we do and what This Is My Brave does, hearing it from people that experience things and don't have a clinical background. They're not going to prescribe you something. They're not looking to diagnose you. We're just looking to have a conversation and to open up about how we're feeling. That's why I think the education does so well. And although it is an introductory course, oftentimes that's just what's needed. Even with, I'm sure you and I, sometimes the reminder of, you know what? Yeah, I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not speaking up on myself. Like, especially in the work we do, we get in this vacuum almost where we stop taking care of ourselves to a certain extent. So Things We Don't Say is that introductory course, and that's for the general public, and it's suitable for young adults to any age. Sorry, something in my eye here. I'm not crying, tearing up yet. But we do tailor that education for different platforms as well. So we have a military first responder platform called our Project Red Team. We have an LGBTQ platform that we'll be launching soon, which is great. It's run by Allison, who was on here a couple weeks ago, and she's amazing. Been a great addition to our team. We have an 86 to Silence platform, which addresses the service industry folks that oftentimes aren't covered by health insurance, and it's a very high stress environment. I don't know if you've ever served or bartended, but it can be a weird space. I can attest to that, and I'm sure you can. Then
I was a waitress. I think everyone should be in that type of role, service role, at some point in their career.
I agree. That's funny you say that, because I do say that to everyone, and I've not lost friends, but I have a different approach to friends on how they treat servers and bartenders, because there's just something about that mindset that this person's not here as your servant, they're here as a worker. And, that's a side subject, but I agree there. And so those are the different platforms, and we will customize the education for the community we're serving from a corporate standpoint. If a corporation comes in and says, hey, we have, we're suffering from burnout. So we look into how we can address that community with burnout and address self-care issues or best practices. Or if they're saying, the virtual work environment's been really rough, we need to have a conversation on mental health. And so we'll come in with that conversation as well. We do also do, aside from this, the Things We Don't Say, we have coffee talks similar to this with some of our communities or our corporate partners, where it is just getting to know members of leadership or members of your team on a different level and seeing them more in a human aspect, breaking down that wall of, the hierarchy. It still exists, especially in the corporate setting, but just hearing how we're all human and interconnected with our emotional health is huge in allowing people to talk about it. And that's the whole point, that we want people to start talking about mental health, so it's not some kind of grand issue that you need to attain perfect mental health, or that it's abstract and it just can't, you'll never attain it. We want it to be very normal, and hopefully our jobs will be gone someday.
Yes. I said that at one of our shows. Our vision is to get to a place where one day we live in a world where we don't have to call it brave for talking openly about mental illness. We'll just call it talking. And then I say, and then we'll have to rebrand This Is My Brave. But, it's true. We do want to get to that place where it's just like physical health. And I think we're getting closer and closer. But it's still got a ways to go.
It does. But I do think maybe not in our lifetime, just if I'm being realistic, but I think eventually it will get to the point where it's seen as, I honestly think it'll be seen more important than physical, because I think it's the driver. And slowly but surely, other practitioners of medicine in the legacy medical fields, I think, are coming on board with that mind-body holistic approach. So that's nice to see. And I do think eventually mental health will be the driver of physical health as well. So
I completely agree with you, Matt. And but I hadn't thought of it in that way. And I think that that is so real. And so it's going to happen. I think you're right. Because we all have brains and our brains drive our whole bodies. So
Yeah.
why isn't it priority? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of making it a coffee conversation, I thought I'd bring in, I had ordered some Sip of Hope
Nice.
coffee. And I love this packaging. It's so cool.
Oh,
This
great.
was this special for Mental Health Month?
So that is just our Let Hope Bloom, and it is seasonal. So that will be gone, and every May we'll be rolling out, well, roughly around May. We're trying to do at least 4 seasonals a year, and we have 2 big months: Mental Health Month and Suicide Awareness Month. So that will probably not be the same bag, but same spirit. Yeah.
Great coffee. And then this one I really liked. This was the Mexico
Nayarit.
chocolate. It was
chocolate.
yeah,
Yep.
Nayarit. Yeah.
We have a great team. Do you want me to talk a little bit about the coffee?
Yeah. Please talk about the coffee shop and the concept behind it.
Yeah, so we have a coffee shop in Logan Square, Chicago. And the concept behind it was an open space where people can meet over a cup of coffee and talk about some of the harder conversations. Because, if you're thinking about what people say when they're trying to take a break, like, let's have a coffee break, let's go have a coffee, have a drink also, which we don't, we work with people in the service industry, so we don't want to stigmatize that. But yeah, coffee is just such an opening, like, people enjoy it more and more. They're enjoying specialty coffee, so it's something for people to gather around. And the concept is just show up and be able to have a safe space where they can even talk to the baristas. We try to have 2 baristas staffed at all time in case someone's having an issue. Of course, we aren't professionals. We will refer a mental health crisis out to a professional that can handle that. But we're there, again, to start the conversation, to have those difficult conversations, just to hear someone out. And many times we hear from our baristas or just overhearing conversations in the cafe, especially pre-COVID. Walking through there, you do hear a lot of great conversations around how people are feeling, how they're doing, and it's just a welcoming environment that I'm very proud of what we do at Sip of Hope. Everyone that works for Sip of Hope is exemplary of what we should be doing in this space. So we have a general manager there, Brian, who you couldn't ask for a better person to be running the ship there. Becca, who is on here, is extremely well tapped in from the foundation of Sip of Hope. So all in all, it's just a great endeavor, and I'd like to see more of them pop up.
Yes, I would too. We need one in the DC area.
Yeah, that's part of my long-term goal. If I were to stay on in this role, is to have a couple more in Chicago and then start to launch into some major hubs so we can get the supply chain down. But that's the accounting in me. So, but yeah, we also have recently, as in October last year, we started our own roasting company as well. That was a great opportunity for us, and we have a couple great gentlemen that have worked in coffee for many years, roasting our coffee. We think it's great coffee. Oftentimes, cause coffee is seen as bad coffee, but we've been rated very highly by some somewhat prestigious review sites on how our coffee tastes. And we're very proud of that, and that drives down our costs, because I should mention the Sip of Hope Cafe and the roaster, 100% of the net proceeds goes to fund Hope for the Day. So that's the only kind that we know of, the companies that do that in the coffee industry. So having the roaster, controlling our costs, and being able to produce the product, plus with the roaster, it's kind of that vertical integration that now we know our farmers. We're going to be able to help our farmers. That's part of the long-term goal, is to educate them and get some resources in those areas. All the way to consumer, we can control how it's produced and what goes into it and what we can get out of it, and help the others that are helping us.
That's so awesome and so important, that sustainability portion of the business. So kudos to you guys, because you're doing an amazing job. And we just feel such a, collaborative spirit with you guys because of the whole aspect of opening up the conversation, doing it through education, doing it through storytelling and peer-to-peer, because like we've been saying, like, we're not mental health professionals, but lived experience really has a lot of value, and that's what we're elevating. And so we're so honored to get to host this conversation and And I have a feeling we're going to do more together. As we launch our college ambassador program, we want to get all of our college ambassadors across the country to go through Things We Don't Say training. And I know Katie's been working hard at that. So that for us is going to launch this summer, an open application for college students everywhere to apply to become a Brave ambassador on their campus, share the message and mission of This Is My Brave through networking and through hosting events on campus and getting their campus community on board as mental health advocates. And so taking your training is going to be really important. So I think that collaboration will be wonderful. We're really excited about that.
Yeah. And I'm not just blowing smoke. I love what you do at This Is My Brave. Anytime that I'm on one of your programs and I'm watching, I always walk away. And now that we're in this space, I'm used to this, but it always amazes me that, you break down a stereotype about someone speaking, you have an assumption going in that they may not be dealing with something. Walking away from your program, I'm always like, that was refreshing, inspirational, and it really changes your perspective on seeing how people are dealing with different things and not assuming that people aren't dealing with things. And it's just great to see so many different faces and backgrounds on your programming. So kudos, and I'll keep signing up for everything that you're putting out.
Thanks so much, Matt. Well, this has been really fun. I really appreciate you taking time out of your morning to talk with me and share all about Hope for the Day and your involvement, and keep doing the great work you're doing. And I know we're going to be in touch over the next couple years plus and collaborate together.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for the time. And again, thanks for everything you do as well, because it is a collaborative space. And someday we'll be sitting on the beach retired because we don't need these jobs, maybe, but
I'll look forward to that day. But yes, thanks, Matt. Have a great rest of your day. It was good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.